roll call, all commissioners present, clerk will note. On the adoption of the agenda, we have two items that have been brought to us. One is the request for a fishing tournament this weekend, which we need to discuss, and it's been brought in, it was brought in after the agenda was done. And also, we have a resolution for the Cowboys State Championship, which we will be reading at, I believe, Sunday afternoon. Do we know what time? Around 2:30. But we'll need to add that to the agenda to be passed by the commission. So do I have a motion for adoption of the agenda? Motion. With it amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The adoption is passed. All right, petition from the public, do we have? All right. Mr. Mike Holden.
Yes, sir.
Come forward, please.
Good morning, John.
Good morning.
How y'all doing?
Just fine.
The reason I'm here this morning, I wanted to address the board about the repaving of or the paving of Old Valdosta Road and Olive Street at the Cherry Lake. I'm glad to see that's finally being done. It's been that road's been kind of in poor condition for a long time. But I'd like to maybe shed a little light on maybe a different way to do that. And I've got a little something you guys look at kind of familiar. So I know most of you know what that is out there.
Oh, no, I haven't asked those out there.
First off, that road is a pretty well traveled road. It's got pretty much got a, I would assume, a pretty high traffic count because it serves quite a bit of people that act in that area. It goes all the way back into Georgia and back over to Pinetta. And it's got some issues on that road. One of the main things is drainage. There's no place to put the water on that road. And when you repave it, I think you're gonna have some problem with drainage. Basically have to dump it in somebody's yard. And then, if you look at your map there, there's a little street called Pampas Grass Trail. That kind of comes back, and if you follow that road, it dives right into, and comes into my property. And that road right there pretty much acts as drainage for Old Valdosta Road. And since I've been in there, I've had to go in and redo a lot of the drainage at my end of that thing, to get it where it would flow into my property without causing a lot of problems. And then the only other place it can drain to is if you look at the kind of the northeast side where Olive and Old Valdosta Road meet. There's an old bar ditch in there the county dug years ago that comes from Olive down to like that second piece of property. It can drain into that bar ditch, or it has to sheet drain all the way to the far end of that where Old Valdosta Road and the Cherry Lake Circle meets. And it dumps into the old Cherry Lake, the old mill ditch, as I call it, down there. That's your drainage in that road. And the drainage either going to go to each side or have to sheet drain and use, right now it's pretty much sheet drains down the old road, using the road as a drainage ditch because there's no drainage ditches in there. And then the next thing is that road has been used like a racetrack. People come off of a Cherry Lake Circle and they just come off that Y, as I call it, and they just kind of jump off there and you take off real fast, and then when you pave it, it's going to become a racetrack. And then another issue is that you don't have, where that Y is, you don't have a 90-degree turn like DOT requires. It's kind of an unsafe place because there's no place you can't see back to the right when you're coming out of there, or it's just an unsafe place to come out. And my proposal would be to make this a better working situation is when you come off, when you're looking at the map, Old Valdosta Road and Cherry Lake Circle, when it first comes in, there's a little triangle there that has a little piece of woods there if you look at it. We come to the end of that property line and block off Old Valdosta Road, and that would make this into this is basically a residential subdivision in here. And that stops the flow of traffic, where all you got coming out of Old Valdosta Road are the, about maybe 10 residents will be using that piece of road. That way you get less traffic, to beat that road up. And you take the, Cherry Lake Circle was built to maintain the traffic of the state. It was built by state requirements. And you come down to Olive, and then Olive would be the entrance to get back into Old Valdosta Road. You turn there by the fire station. That way you have a shorter piece of road to maintain for heavy equipment. Because we have a heavy equipment contractor, Pioneer, that comes down that road every day. He's got dump trucks and he pulls excavators. These things have got at least 60,000 pounds, and they're using that road daily. And so it's gonna beat up that Old Valdosta Road in there, because what you got there for a base right now is millings. They're about 6 inches thick. And I don't think that this, I'm not professional, but my background is construction. I did it for over 40 years. And in my opinion, there's no place for water to go. That stays wet in there during wet times. That base is gonna stay wet, and I don't think that piece of road is gonna hold up with that heavy traffic. I mean, Mr. Steves and Lonnie could probably better tell you that, because Mr. Steves is the county engineer. I don't know what kind of engineering was done on it, or if there is one, but I just don't think it's gonna hold up. And I think it'd be better off for that piece of road to be just made into like a residential street rather than the main thoroughfare, and Olive would become your main thoroughfare. And I would just, before you guys take a look at it, I know you've already voted on it. And then the next thing is that, when you're coming off of Old Valdosta Road, come off of Cherry Lake Circle on Old Valdosta Road, you're crossing the old mill ditch right there. You got a 30-foot culvert pipe underneath that. And on each side of that culvert pipe, there's about 4 foot of grade in there. It doesn't have any kind of, retainer walls or anything. It's constantly washing out, but every year they gotta come in there and fix that. It gets down to where it's a pretty dangerous intersection where there's no room for hardly 2 cars to pass on it. You gotta stop. And if you block that off, you wouldn't have to have a problem with that old ditch anymore. It's done. So I just think it's just a better way to route traffic. Is safer. We meet your DOT requirements, and you don't have to worry about redoing that, Old Valdosta Road again, because with 10 cars on it, it would take and hold the traffic that needs to be, from now on, we won't have a problem with maintenance on it. And, other than that, maybe if, I know you guys can't really see what's going on by looking at this one-dimensional thing, I just ask you guys to come out and take a look at it. And if you guys don't have time, maybe I could get the county coordinator, Brian Kaufman, to come out and look at it with me and report back to you guys and see what you think about it.
Thank you, Mr. Holton. Mr. Thigpen, I wanna call on you to respond to that. Is Mr. Steve back there?
Yep.
Would y'all like to come forward?
Oh, it's not. Small.
As you well know, back, I think 2 or 3 years ago, the county voted to put the mill asphalt in there with the intention of paving it, and that's what we did. As far as the heavy trucks going on it, they're going on it now with mill asphalt. If we pave it, I don't think that's gonna weaken the road. There hasn't been an issue yet, so. We'll try to get drainage where we can. Once we pave it, we always put shoulders and try to get it off the road as best we can. We'll try to maintain it that way, so.
Has the contractor actually started on that road yet?
Yes, sir, they put the lime rock on Olive Street this week. They haven't finished grading, and they started grading the, mill asphalt that we plan to pave over the top of it.
Steve, you wanna add anything?
One thing to remember, like, milled asphalt, we use it all over the state when we can get a hold of it in wet conditions. I mean, that's what it's used for. It works a lot better than, the lime rock does. And is, less damage to it when water rises or falls. Okay, with, what we're doing now, we're not correcting a lot of drainage problems. The, pipes that he was, mentioning that go under that road, we're putting mitered in sections on them, so that'll stabilize anything around there. And, like Lonnie says, the thing's been using that road, or the Pioneer's been using that road for years. It hadn't been damaged by, any of their work now. All putting asphalt on top of it isn't gonna change much. It'll make it better than what it is today.
One question, if I might ask. Are you planning on doing anything to the to the end of them culverts, like the head walls hold that erosion.
Yeah, right in this section.
Okay.
All right,
On that, Mr. Chair,
yes.
was any, discussion, I don't know who owns that wedge of property,
On that bus lines.
as far as making that a 90-degree into the intersection there instead of a being into it, I didn't know if there was any discussion.
No, we haven't looked at it. Our main thing was just to go in there
Right.
and make, like we're doing every other road under this particular contract.
Yeah, that would be the only thing I would, maybe in the future, we can correct that intersection and make it more turn to a 90 degrees, so it's easier to look left and right going into that intersection.
And we're gonna redo that, we've already put some extra mill asphalt in that curve where you make
Okay.
that right turn.
Okay.
To try to help with what we can, you're limited with space right
Right,
there.
right, I mean, it's very limited, I mean, you'd have to acquire the property to be able to do that, you know.
Well, then you got the culverts coming under
Right.
253 and that road too, that are right there at that intersection, so you don't have a lot of room to deal with.
Right.
That's why I said my recommendation was just to stop that road and you do away with all that.
For safety reasons, for public safety and everything else, I'd be very reluctant, and plus,
Yeah.
there's a lot of property owners that would probably wouldn't agree with that.
I know that, some of them, I know, I talked to a couple that worried about the water on the yards, and I talked to one that said they're worried about the traffic now, about maybe including some speed bumps, because the traffic's gonna be really fast coming through there. Well, it's already fast on that old beat up piece of road.
Well, we got regulations on speed bumps, but we can take a look at it, I think, once we get it done and see if anything needs to be corrected. Thank you for coming, Mr. Holton.
Thank you, sir, I appreciate y'all listening.
Okay. Mr. Brent Whitman.
Commission, staff, Monday, I'd come up here at at 10 minutes till 5 to drop off some plans to the building department. The front doors were locked. Had no idea. To my knowledge, the building was open till 5 o'clock. I'd actually called the planning department, it rang, called my commissioner, left him a message, called a couple other, phone numbers, by that time it was well after 5. Come up yesterday morning, took care of my business, talked with Mr. Kaufman, he told me that they, shut down at 5:15 to make sure that everybody in the building got out before 5, so they didn't have to work after 5 to keep overtime down. I think that's a totally unacceptable answer, period. I mean, if we can stagger people coming in 30 minutes before, 30 minutes after, something. I mean, if we're open till 5 o'clock, we're open till 5 o'clock. If we're shutting down at 4:45, I mean, we need to let people know. I mean, I don't know. I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know we were shut down at 4:45.
That has been the policy and for that reason too.
Well, if it's the policy, I mean, then why do the websites all say that these offices over here are open till 5 o'clock?
Mr. Kaufman, you know,
Well, we will, take care of the public up till 5 o'clock, and even then past, once they're here. And I mean, this has been in place ever since I've been here 2.5 years. And I know Mr. Whitman has come here for years, so I'm really surprised he's not aware of that.
Well, and once again, I mean, this was actually the second time. One time I come here and somebody was coming out at, you know, whatever time it was after 5:45, that the door got open. And, but I was unaware of the policy. I mean, I didn't know. Anyway, I'm making the commission aware.
Actually, I wasn't aware until 3 or 4 or 5 months ago, because I came up at 4:45 one day to come in and doors were locked. Because normally I'm here well before 5, so.
Yeah.
I never.
Well, I typically am too, but it just happened to be. I mean,
And I
it was.
Brett, I agree with you. I mean, if we're supposed to be here till 5, then I think the public
Yeah.
should be available.
I was,
Or either that, we change it, you know, but yeah, I agree.
Mr. Chairman, that policy has been around for a while. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but next door, they have quite a few coins, they have to count up and close out the books before the end of the day. And I would suggest we probably just need to take a look at it and make changes if we need to.
well, that might be something we need to do, because we do say we owe it to 5, and I'm like Commissioner Davis, I wasn't aware of the problem, that it happened until another individual who happened to come down a little later than usual to take care of some business and ran into the same problem Mr. Whitman did. And, I don't know whether we can stagger some time or what, but maybe we do need to take a look at doing something.
Well, Mr. Chairman, we can adjust to it, but it will be the other constitutional officers,
That's
of course,
true.
that we have to work with.
Right.
Actually, our department,
Yeah.
is the least bothered by that as far as trying to close out the books.
Correct. And I think that falls mostly on the tax collector,
Mhm.
and their commissioner.
Mr. Chair, I was surprised when you called me, you know, I looked at, actually, I took a screenshot of your phone, called, and it was 5 minutes till. And we advertised we're open to 5, and we should be open to 5. And I understand that, the tax collector has to balance her, I understand that, but it shuts down all the other offices because of that one, and maybe we need to change that policy or advertise we're closing at 4:30. One of the two.
Yeah, I think everybody's got a point. I'm like I said earlier, I was not aware of the problem, and I actually came up there one time, and, Mr. Pride was locking the door as I got out to come in, and so, and then somebody else called me, like, Commissioner Walter was called, and they voiced the same concerns that Mr. Whitman is voicing, so I think we do need to figure out something, take a look at it, come up with a recommendation. What's the pleasure of the board, y'all wanna?
Mr. Chairman, I'd suggest that, Mr. Kaufman take a look at that and get the other constitutionals and bring bring a recommendation back to the board.
See what the security issues are with the tax collector, and then we can deal with it.
So we'll look into it, but don't expect the changes after.
Oh, no, look, I mean,
Yeah.
my commissioner wasn't aware of it, and I didn't know how many of y'all were aware of it, because I didn't speak to y'all directly, so I was bringing it to the board. Mr. Kaufman, he wasn't aware of it until he come here, obviously.
Right.
I'm bringing it to the awareness,
And we appreciate that.
and,
And,
you know,
we do need to take a look at it.
yeah, I appreciate it. Gentlemen, ma'am, thank y'all for y'all's time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I wanna take this about personal privilege and, introduce the next, speaker. Mr. Brian Deloge is a member of the Leon County Commission. He is vice chair right now, and previously he has been president of, NACO, the National Association of County Commissioners, as well as a president of FACT, the Federal Association of Commissioners and State, which we're all members of, and, welcome, Mr. Deloge, appreciate you coming over from the big city of Tallahassee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, appreciate it. Let me just say, the only way we get better is people that come in and make comments like that. And I tell you, people call me all the time and say, I got a pothole in front of my house and it's been there for 6 months, and how come you haven't fixed it? I said, oh, I don't drive your road every day, I can fix it this afternoon. So, I'm here to talk a little bit about FAC and a little bit about NACO, mostly to see if y'all would consider being a member of NACO again. Y'all were at one point. There's 67 counties in the state, 63 of them are members. The membership is $450. I'll just say real quickly, FAC, I think y'all believe in pretty much because they legislate for you at the state. They basically look out for you. They've got insurance programs. As I like to say, in the private sector, if I had a business advantage that made my company a little bit better, more competitive than somebody else, I'm not gonna tell anybody about that because that's my competitive advantage. In government, we all share the same tax dollars, and the reality is if I've got a way to do something easier, better, quicker, faster in Leon County, I ought to be telling you about that. When I was president of the National Association of Counties, I instituted a program, said what are the 100 best ideas across the country today? And I'll give you an example, we were talking about this earlier. I ran into a bridge engineer in Iowa. He said, I got 200 bridges in my little county in Iowa. He said, I can't keep them up. I just don't have the money and the funds to keep them up. And the choices are, for the elected officials, you either shut it down or you let the public drive on something that's not safe. He said, you know what? I found that after a certain period of time, the federal government retires rail cars. After so many hours on the rails, they retire them. He said, I can buy a rail car for between $15,000 and $20,000. He said, I can strip the wheels off, I can strip the box off, I can use that substructure as my bridge, and literally with a little bit of steel, a little bit of cement, and he goes, it's about half the price to do that bridge. And I thought, well, that's the kind of creative thinking we need to be able to share. And I'll just tell you that, we all have a very limited amount of resources and an unlimited amount of need. Let's face it, if the public knew that you just were giving away money, there'd be a line out the door down the street in every county. And it just doesn't work that way. We have certain boundaries. The state requires us to spend certain ways, and the federal government. So at least in my budget, 70% of it's state and federal mandates, and I have a limited amount of flex. But there's strength in numbers, and frankly, the reason you participate in FAC is because it makes you stronger. The reason Amendment 1 did not pass, which I know would have hit y'all in your pocketbook, as it would have us in Leon County, was a good thing. In fact, got in front of that. NACO does the exact same thing on the federal level. And I will tell you, even if you never travel to a NACO event, we would love to see some of you on committees. I'll give you an example. There's a Veterans Committee. You know, the majority of the actions are being made at the federal government. They have a monthly call, they have a monthly newsletter. It makes you a better commissioner to participate and better understand what's going on at the federal level. So that's my pitch, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Kelly, and I would respectfully ask at some point y'all would consider potentially becoming a member of NACO again. I can just tell you there's strength in numbers, and it makes you better commissioners, and it makes you a stronger county. And I think there's some strength in just sharing some of the best practices that are out there. And that's an honor to come here, and I always learn something, so thank you for your hospitality.
Thank you.
And if I can answer any questions, I'd be happy to, so.
Any questions from Mr. Deloach?
I can tell you all about, I spent 260 days on the road last year visiting counties, so.
Well, I'd have a question.
Yes, sir.
For you. Out of our 67 counties in the state.
Yes, sir.
Are all of the 67 counties?
64 are members of NACO. When I came in and ran for president of the National Association of Counties about 5-6 years ago now, there were about 4 or 5 that were not members. Orange County, surprisingly, which is Orlando, was not a member. I went down and met with Teresa Jacobs, who was the mayor at the time. And there's always a couple of commissioners that just don't see the value in being members. And they're like, I'm a business owner, I get it. I mean, there's a limited amount of money that's out there, and you gotta figure out how you can spend it. And so I got us to 100%. And over the last 5 years, a couple of counties, and y'all being one of them. And so when I ran into Commissioner Kelly a while back, and I had the NACO representative was in the FAC conference a couple of weeks ago. So, and they, you know, it is, NACO is FAC at the federal level. It's just a bigger sandbox. We got, you know, we're dealing with the federal issues that are out there. And let me tell you, I have visited all 50 states, and whether you're a supervisor in California, a police juror in Louisiana, or a county commissioner in Florida, you do the same thing. It's ultimately, there's some nuances, every state has a little different, but generally, we're fighting the same fight. We're trying to be responsive to constituents that have issues, and we have a limited amount of money. The beauty of the associations is if you take one idea away that's gonna save you some money, then it's well worth the price of admission. So I just feel like you can't, this isn't a business where you're trying to be competitive and watch that. I mean, the reality is, there's a lot of strength in numbers. We've got on the NACO website, thing called County Explorer. We hired somebody away from the Brookings Institute. She's so smart it makes my head hurt when I talk to her. She speaks 5 languages. But they took every piece of publicly available data, which is a lot, and drilled it down to the county level. So if you want to know how many books were checked out of the library here last year compared to your neighboring counties, you can do that. You want to know how many veterans in your county compared to the neighboring counties? You can do that. You want to know how many unemployed veterans in your county compared to neighboring counties? And when you want to try and figure out how to justify or how to become a better commissioner, if you can't measure it, it's hard to determine whether or not you're making a difference. So, anyway, but good question, yeah. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for.
Thank you for coming over.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. We will consider. Okay. Approval of minutes from regular meeting held, November 14th, 2018. Also approval of minutes for a special meeting held November 19th, 2018. And the approval of the minutes for a special meeting held on December 3rd.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I move that the minutes be accepted as presented with corrections at the beginning.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Passed. Constitutional office reports, I know the sheriff's here, and I think I see a couple others.
Nothing at this time, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Did I see Mr. Hardy come in?
Morning, morning,
Good
morning.
morning.
I'm sorry I hadn't been before y'all since the election, but we were still wrapping up and conferences and everything else. But I gotta start off by saying thank you to my employees and the poll workers and the canvassing board and the county attorney. When you read the headlines and it says 65 counties did a great job in Florida, we're one of those 65. I would say we had very minimal hiccups and we had a great election. I got good news and bad news. The good news is that we did have a good election. We had at one time 17 people in the recount room watching. And somebody asked, does that bother you? And I said, no, because they can see that we do things right in Madison County. We took right at 6 hours to do the recount, the machine recount. The manual recount took right at 4 hours, 4.5. And so it's time consuming. And if you look back at 2010, before I got in elections, I thought elections wasn't nothing. I thought they worked just like most people. You work every 2 years, you don't do much. I'm on blood pressure medicine right before elections start, and I get off of them when they're over with. And I gained about 15 pounds. I never would have seen it. And we just got back from conference, and it was amazing to look at the supervisors, how beat up they are across the state. And a lot of that is not on a local level, but on a national level, and how the news portrays and does. And then when we come back to it, remember Russia was hacked us. We hadn't heard about that in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 months, whatever. You know, so it's a dog fight. Now that's the good news. We're gonna come back with an amendment to our budget because the recount's probably gonna cost us around $10,000. We hadn't got the big number in yet, and I'm just assuming that. So I'll come back and amend that budget. The bad news is, got news yesterday, we're gonna have another election. It's probably gonna be the first or second weekend in March. We got a House race, and it'll be a countywide election. That's not bad news, but it means we're canvassing board, y'all are gonna be back at it. Maybe it won't be as stressful. Some things that we're gonna get some numbers between now and next election is, we learned this past in our conference that we can do vote centers and we can do certain things. So I'm gonna get some numbers together and see if it's worth us having 5 vote centers in Madison for that special election. Anybody goes to any one of them on election day. If you look at Gulf County, what they did, they pulled it off in those 7 counties that were affected in the storm. But anyway, I just wanted to come tell you, we had a heck of an election, and those staff over there, I can't say enough. Anybody got any questions?
Just out of curiosity, you gonna do early voting for that special election?
We'll have to early vote and absentee or vote by mail. It'll be just like a
Just like
regular.
before.
And the way the law reads, it's 81 days, and that's gonna come close to the first Tuesday or second Tuesday. And so we're waiting on them. I called right before I walked in to see if they had set that date yet. And that's for, I don't know if I said it, that's for Halsey Bashir's, he took a state job,
Right.
so.
You mentioned doing 5 centers. Would that be similar to what you're currently doing now with early voting? Basically, you would use those precincts or?
Yeah. If the numbers work out,
Yeah.
again, I haven't even looked deep into it because we're still wrapping up, reports and stuff. But it would be typically Greenville, Pinetta, Madison, and Lee, and probably pick up Sermons if the fire department's open down that way. And that'd be what's open on election day. And anybody can go to any of those. Because if you look at it, the state's supposed to pay us back, but in the meeting we were in, it's been 2 years since, on one special election the county's had, and they hadn't gotten paid back yet. And so we're a strapped county. You know, if we can add a service like they did in those counties over there. And if you listen to them, if you read the reports, they loved it. Because it doesn't, if you happen to be in Pinetta, you can vote there going to Valdosta or whatever. So I'm gonna get those numbers and I'll get back to you, but that's just when you're talking to the people in your area, feel them out and see how they feel about it. Because, I mean, I think it's a win-win after looking at Bay County.
you were at the conference, is there any hope that the state, and I think I know the answer to this question before I ask it, but is the state talking about anything of reimbursing or helping with the counties on the special recount?
On the recount, no, we're gonna eat that.
Or any, like I said,
Mr. Tom, is this something that you're looking at implementing the voting center from here on and doing away with your actual polling places? Possibly?
Yeah, again, you gotta look at numbers, but if I gotta have a polling place that has, 80 voters that come up, and I have to pay 5 people to sit there, the number one priority is to make sure the votes count, and they have a place. But you know, when you look at precincts 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when they set these, it was harder to travel. So can you go 5 more miles down the road and go to a place to help save your county some money? You know, and we look at it, the building in Cherry Lake, we're gonna have to put a new roof on it. That building's in bad shape. You know, so if there's ways to come around it to save the county, but somebody doesn't, I'm all for it. But if it causes somebody where they can't get to their polling place, then I'm against it. So that's why we gotta look at the numbers and see, and I'm gonna put it out there and ask people to call and tell me their opinions on it, you know? But with this special election, probably a 30% turnout and that's a high number. Why not use it as a starting point to see, and then let the people say, no, I didn't like it, yeah, I like it, so we can gear up for 2020.
well, actually, in the, early voting, I haven't, except for, I think, one of our, elections this term, haven't we been running higher numbers in early voting? So that, I don't know, that tells me that they can travel, they don't mind traveling to the 5 precincts to do the voting.
But again, I mean, here's a pilot, let's jump on it and see, but let me get down and do some research. I just wanted to put it out there, put it in the community, so we can get some feedback on it. And again, if it's gonna save the county some money, let's try it. So,
You know, Mr. Chairman, one thing we need to put on our radar, and it'll be here before you vote, we have a census in 2020, so
Yep.
that's something we can keep in the back of our minds also.
and these precincts where that federal court was 83?
It was mid-80s.
Yeah, 83, I think it was, those were set, so.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I just wanted to tell, Tom, I've already said this in another meeting that you wasn't here, but, you know, having served on the canvassing board this year, I learned a lot about the entire election process and what we did, and I'm gonna tell you, they did a phenomenal job.
Yes.
I think the attorney would agree, it was all transparent. I mean, they've done a great job. They served Madison well, and we had no, issues with any of our election process, so thank you for that.
Phenomenal staff.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and just to ditto what Commissioner Davis has said, I think everybody should go through a recount.
Or serve on the canvassing board.
It's a learning experience. Well, the better phrase that, serve on the canvassing board, it's a learning experience,
It is.
but no more recounts.
Let's try to avoid a recount. Thank you, Mr. Hart.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to, we have the consent agenda, I have a motion.
Motion approved, Secretary.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0, passed. All right, no unfinished business. We will move to Public Works, consideration of the lease agreement, with resolution for 2 Mack, GR 640B roll-off trucks for the solid waste, department. Mr. Blair.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thinking on everything had been sent out properly on that batch, as y'all know, working towards this. Paperwork's been done on that one. We're running a short time frame, so I hope that everything's gonna be approved here and we'll get the ball game rolling with the streets. Any questions to it, or hopefully I have the answer.
we need to pass a resolution on it, or do we have to go separately, the lease agreement and the resolution?
Essentially, the resolution is this way, we have to, approve the resolution. The resolution, says it authorizes everyone to sign the document, so all the board does collectively is pass the resolution, and then the chair will sign the documents.
Okay. Do I have a motion for, I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution for the Mack truck. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Thank you, Mr. Blair.
Thank you very much. On a second note on that behalf, there was Christmas coming up. Spoke with Mr. Kaufman on that path there, and he pretty much approves it, with us on that path there, but we wanted to be sure the commissioners would consider letting on Christmas Eve, the collection center shut down at 5 o'clock, so that families could have supper and whatnot on that, get y'all approval there.
What says the board?
We'll need a motion.
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
That's it.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve closing at 5 p.m. on the, December 24th. Monday this coming, Monday week, excuse me, Monday week. Any further discussion?
They'll be able to post them, we'll post
Yeah,
them for
we-
everybody in advance.
We'll have a sign that they're being closed, and somehow or another, I'll have something up there, let them know that
Yeah,
we're
let's-
closed.
As soon as we can,
Yeah.
let's go ahead and
Yeah,
start posting.
we need to get that out, and Mr. Kaufman, maybe if you're off, could also get out notice on social media, because I know that does cause some problems sometimes when we close unexpectedly. But I agree with that, proposal to do that, I just think we need to let the public know if we're gonna do it. Any other discussion? All those in favor of that? Consent? Okay, all opposed? 5-0. Okay, we will take care of that, Mr. Blair, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. We,
Well, yeah, you probably should have amended the agenda. I think if the commission agrees, you can.
Well,
you
yeah.
can Assume that was done in both motions, I think, you might have to say, if that's consensus.
Yeah,
I don't have it.
yeah. All right.
So that'll be, Mr. Chairman, excuse me, that'll be number 5.
Yeah, be number 5. All right, now number 2, approval of maintenance maps for Northeast Flowers Road and Northeast Clover Avenue, the sig fence.
And I do have them out, for Flowers, there's a section on Flowers Road and Clover Avenue that we had discussed previously, to do a maintenance map with the intention of trying to get a little bit of additional right of way, from the landowners, and we've got a verbal agreement from the landowners. And these are several sheets.
I haven't had any contact with any of them on Clover, so I'm assuming everything's.
Yes, we've got verbal agreement from, there are 2 landowners on Flowers Road and 2 landowners on Clover. And we've got verbal